Um, so today I get to share just a little testimony of Thanksgiving. And actually 2 weeks ago, when Pastor asked me to share a testimony on breakthrough in light of Thanksgiving, I said yes immediately, but I also told him that it's been an odd year for me and that I would be the worst person to speak on breakthrough because I just didn't feel like I had a story of breakthrough. But Pastor encouraged me, and I was still left feeling super anxious to begin just digging up what God's been doing in my life this year. But before I get into my testimony, I just want to preface it with Ephesians 1:17-21. It says, I keep asking that the God of our Lord Jesus Christ, the glorious Father, may give you the spirit of wisdom and revelation, so that you may know him better. I pray that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened in order that you may know the hope to which he has called you, the riches of his glorious inheritance in his holy people, and his incomparably great power for us who believe. That power is the same as the mighty strength he exerted when he raised Christ from the dead and seated him at his right hand in the heavenly realms, far above all rule and authority, power and dominion, and every name that is invoked, not only in the present age, but also in the one to come. From this passage, I get the message that Abba's desires to be close to us, and that it's only him who gives us the spirit of wisdom and revelation. And it's also important to note that God has made us to be sensitive to what is and what is not truth. And if we open the eyes of our hearts to truth, it will surely come rushing in and freedom will follow. So I'm really excited to share with you guys a testimony because I actually have one now, as opposed to 2 weeks ago. And my family is here, so I just want to thank my family for coming out. But yeah, bear with me. I'm going to take you through some stuff, and so I hope it's not hard to follow. But I know I sound like a broken record now when I say this, but James and I have been in a prolonged season of waiting. And while people tend to sometimes think that we're stuck, we have known deep down that God has never allowed us to be stuck in a season before. And so we've known that this season has been and is a season rooted in waiting. Nevertheless, it's been a discouraging and hard season for us where we have been met with a lot of disappointment and unfortunate events and a lot of sadness. We're almost a year into our waiting now, and only recently have we started to receive clarity from God about why he's asked us to wait on him. I'm going to go back to about a year ago because that's where I believe our season of waiting truly began. Last December, I got on a plane by myself and flew to Seattle before going to Vancouver for a conference. I was so anxious to be on my own for the first time since James and I got married. And I was also nervous about flying because I have major motion sickness. And so to my luck, I got the window seat, which is the worst for motion sickness. And I have a plan for these situations, though. I usually just close the window and sleep the entire flight to avoid feeling sick. And while that usually works, this time was a little different for some reason. I woke up and decided to look out my window. And when I did, it was a beautiful shade of pink, white, and blue, and my eyes were quickly drawn to a picture in the sky. I saw an ocean of blue clouds, a magnificent white ship sailing across it, and pink waves beneath it. And then I saw a little trail of puffy clouds behind the ship that I couldn't make out. But I remember pulling out my phone, writing down what I saw because it was pretty, and then I just closed the window and went back to sleep. I spent a day in Seattle with my best friend, and then we went off to Vancouver for a conference. This conference was a little different. It's unlike any I've ever been to. We were split up from everyone we knew and put into random groups with 2 group leaders, and we were also encouraged not to talk to any of our group members or anybody that we saw there at the conference, because the whole point of the conference was to spend time with God solely. So I learned quickly that my leaders were gifted with the ability to hear words of knowledge from God. And there was an exercise where our leaders were asked to hear over us, and I was super skeptical about it because the words spoken over the girls before me seemed super vague and general. And so I think even then, though, God knew my heart and what I was thinking, because when it was my turn, my leaders called me by name, and they sat down and closed their eyes and began speaking. And one of my leaders said to me, "Gloria, God has given me a picture. I see a ship of some sort. It's a beautiful ship, but you're carrying too many things on it. You're holding on to too much. Father God says he is going to begin showing you what these things are, and he's going to help you throw them overboard one by one. He wants you to know that he is enough for you, and you don't need all the extra stuff. He wants you to sail lightly and freely." And in that moment, I cried, because I knew for a fact that God had painted that picture in the sky for me so that I would not doubt what he could do at this conference and even now. And so the trail of the clouds that I couldn't make out before behind the boat were actually all of the things that God said that he would begin to strip me of so that I could sail lightly and freely. And it made sense all of a sudden. So over the next couple of days, I prayed into it, and God quickly began to show me very tangible things that I could let go of on my own. My journal piled up more and more with new things every day, and then I thought God was done showing me by the end of the conference, but little did I know he was and is not finished yet. Fast forward to about a month ago, when the worship team and I spent a weekend at a retreat with Lindsay Westman. My heart was full of a lot of sadness and discouragement the weekend of the retreat, and I felt so down that I couldn't even bring myself to get out of bed the day that we were supposed to drive out to meet everyone. But God spoke to me that day. He helped me get out of bed, and he told me that I needed to show up. He needed me to show up. And so that gave me enough strength to get up and go, but I still felt the same. On our second day of the retreat, Lindsay was taking us through a workshop and just sharing some of the things that God has done in her life. And at one point she said, "God sometimes strips you of things so that you don't build your life on shaky ground. He wants you to build your life on a firm foundation." And right away I remembered how I had shared a devotion with you guys here at COA just 2 weeks before. And I talked to you guys about how God has just been taking me and James through this process of stripping us from things that don't align with his heart and his plan for us. And immediately it felt like my mind began to just fill up with all of these things that God has taken from us this year. And my hand began going 100 miles per hour, just writing everything down in my journal as I heard it. And so I was tuned out of Lindsay's message and listening intently to all that God was telling me. But after I finished writing the list, God also revealed to me his reasons for taking these things from us. And I was blown away because it all made sense. I began telling James about everything that I had just received, and it helped the both of us to understand our circumstance so much clearer. I remember we were just standing outside because we were supposed to be on a nature walk, and I was going crazy talking. I was kind of jumping around because I was like, I can't believe God just showed me that. And it was not just for me, it was for me and James. And so we had a hunch just for so long that God was preparing us for something bigger, but we never received confirmation until this day at the retreat. It was also at this time that I realized that what God said he would do last year at the conference was finally coming to fruition. And God had already begun working in this season of ours last year when I had no idea what he was doing. James and I were really thankful that God would show us these things, but we still had no idea what he was preparing us for or how we were supposed to be preparing ourselves in the meantime. But we still felt like we had enough to know that we were just on the right path. And so fast forward to November 11th, the day before Pastor asked me to share my testimony. My heart was super heavy because I was being rejected from all my job applications, and my grace period for student loans ended. And so I was in constant wonder of what God was up to and when he would begin to just give us clearer answers. I went to sleep that night and God gave me a dream, but he never spoke, but he gave me a picture and he helped me to just understand very clearly. It's like he put understanding into my mind. I remember in my dream, I heard myself repeating what the Lord wanted me to know while staring at a tiny seed. And in my dream I was saying, I'm like a seed. In order to grow, I must be watered constantly and nurtured. The difference between previous seasons and now is that God is building in me eternal strength. Rather than watering me just enough to sustain me for a busy and quick season like seasons before, He is taking his time in nurturing and growing me for a much different season than I've ever seen before. This time will be different, and God is preparing me for a much bigger, longer, and more life-changing kingdom purpose. I woke up a couple of times throughout the night, only to fall back asleep and have this same dream over and over, which never happens. But when I woke up in the morning, I immediately wrote down everything so that I wouldn't forget. I realized that this dream helped me to understand why this season of waiting is longer and why it's so much more difficult to understand from my own perspective. And without the Lord coming to me in a dream to reveal this to me, I wouldn't have seen this from his perspective, and I would continue to be confused, discouraged, and anxious in this season. On Sunday, Pastor asked me to prepare a testimony, so that following night I prayed a really desperate prayer for God to just begin revealing himself to me and James on a deeper level. Exactly 24 hours later, I opened YouTube to watch some videos while getting ready for bed, and a random video popped up on my feed titled, "Prophetic Word, the waiting season is almost over." And my heart dropped, and I immediately knew it was for me. I've learned by now not to choose skepticism and rejection of something just because it seems a little strange, because God has revealed to me that he's kind of funny and definitely strange sometimes. And so I decided to watch the video and believe that this was intentional on his part. So in the video, a woman began speaking and telling us viewers that the Lord spoke to her and gave her an assignment to record herself and share what he told her with all who are in waiting. Before prophesying, she spoke about deep and specific things that the Father showed her about those who've been waiting. And I knew that I could trust what she was saying because it was evident that this is a woman who spends time with the Lord on a daily basis. And so she said Abba's message was this, that our season of waiting is almost over and that it has been the preparation ground for where we are going. And where we are going is promotion and multiplication. We have no idea what that means, but that was like an answered prayer. And we serve a really intentional and loving God who can and will use any form of communication to speak to us. And James and I fully believe that this was an answer to our prayers. So we went to sleep just really thankful that night for a God who is who he says he is. Something I should mention is that in the past 6 months since I graduated, I've been slowly but surely coming to a point where I realize that I've just stopped doing everything that I'm passionate about, except writing. Lately, God has made it apparent that I am to be doing a few things only, and that is spending time with him and writing to glorify him. Even so, I felt confused and conflicted, so I asked God a couple of questions. I asked him questions like, why did you fill me up with creativity only to stop me in my tracks and put a halt on all of it? What's your reason for promising me specific things only to make us wait so long? And that night I prayed for the gift to hear directly from God himself, and I went to sleep. I had a dream again. This time God gave me a date, and that was it. He gave me August 20th. No explanation, and it made no sense. In my dream, I remember shouting, "What does August 20th mean?" with no answer. When I woke up from the dream the next morning, I was frustrated because I couldn't figure out what the date meant. And at first, I thought it was someone's birthday that I was supposed to talk to, but that didn't feel right. So I did a quick Google search for the significance of that date, and it turns out to be a day called God's Preeminence Day, which is literally a day to remind us that God should be first in all aspects of our lives. This was, where's my page? I'm sorry. Oh, I'm missing a page. Can you bring my page up? Yes, this was God's answer to all my questions about why this and why that. And he's been putting a halt on all of the things that I give my attention to and ushering me into just writing about him and learning more about who he is, because he's teaching me to just simply put him first. It seems so simple, but I believe it's actually a huge requirement for this next season that is still to be revealed. He's realigning my heart with his, and he's teaching me to teach James to do so as well. And it's definitely been a blessing, because I know that in spending time with God and doing nothing else these past couple of weeks, I've encountered him on deeper levels, and I've known his love greater. Throughout the rest of the week, God kept waking me up in the middle of the night just to talk to me, and while he doesn't speak audibly, he puts thoughts that aren't my own in my head. And so You guys will see this by now, but it's a pattern. I get up and I write everything down so that I don't forget it. So little did I know that throughout the week following my conversation with Pastor Toole, God was really giving me everything that I needed to help me write my entire testimony of breakthrough through each appointment that he made with me these last 2 weeks. I'm so thankful that God cares for me enough to just talk to me when hopelessness is just sitting outside my door, causing me to say that I'm the worst person to speak on breakthrough, because that's such a lie. God is working in my life and in yours, and he has such a great story to tell you about how he's been doing so, if you'll just ask and wait on his response. I know that on Thanksgiving we usually reflect and give thanks for all that we have, but ironically this year, James and I are thankful for all that we've lost, because I believe that our souls know our Creator deeper than we even understand. And it has a funny way of manifesting somehow and causing us to say, even in our loss, hallelujah, all we have is Christ. So I'm learning that this stripping process has been more of a kindness than anything from God. He's teaching us that when we have nothing to hold us back, and that all we have is him to move us into the fullness of who we were always meant to be, then that's the best place to be. So breakthrough may not look like getting the job that I prayed for this year, or receiving the raise that we thought James needed. But we're learning that breakthrough may sometimes look like divine appointments with the Lord and deeper intimacy with him that pushes us to receive and produce more than what we initially thought we ever needed could ever do. So my prayer over all of you guys today is Ephesians 1:17-21, that you may all receive the spirit of wisdom and revelation so that you can know him better, and so that the eyes of your hearts would be opened, and so that you will know the hope to which he has called you, even when hopelessness keeps knocking at your door. So thanks for letting me share a little bit of my heart with you guys today. Happy Thanksgiving.